What is up everyone, and welcome to some more F1 22. Last time out we did the first race of the season in Bahrain and it went pretty well. We ended up getting a P5 after a late race safety car, so that was a fantastic result for us. And now we are back in Jeddah for my second time out this game cycle. Last year, if you watched the recap video, or you actually were around for the video that we released last year, you may remember, well, last season, it was a few months ago that video came out. You may remember that we had a mechanical failure from the points when we were in a good position to perhaps get our first points of the season, back when the AI had absolutely busted straight line speed and it was pretty much impossible to stay with them. This time out, I'm very optimistic about getting some points actually, because the AI typically have not been quite as good as they are on most circuits on this one. I think this is honestly one of their weakest circuits, either that or it's one of my strongest circuits. But either way, I seem to go a lot faster than the AI most of the time. So with the difficulty level we find ourselves on, I think I'm probably going to be competing for points at the very least. Probably, you know, I reckon sort of top 6-ish sort of area. I'll probably be competing with sort of the McLarens and the Mercedeses, I imagine, if I had to guess. But we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, we first have practice. I'm not going to show you any of the practice. I've talked about this before. I think at the end of the day it was not really that important, but yeah, just on the practice session it did end up going pretty well for me. I think we ended up P2 in the end. Yep, you can see there it was P2 in the end. Obviously not everyone doing a soft compound run, but the pace felt pretty good. I was pretty comfortable with the session and the circuit, so yeah, the setup and stuff all felt good. So I was pretty optimistic going into qualifying that things were going to sort of go well. This has always been one of my sort of pretty much ever since the game sort of came out. This has been one of my ever since the circuit dropped in the last year's game. This has been one of my favorite circuits in the game. It's just very fast and flowing, and I think the drivers kind of say that like from a qualifying perspective at least, it certainly seems to be one of their sort of preferred circuits. So it's just not always particularly fun to race around, but we'll get more onto how the race goes when we're actually in the race. We'll do a few upgrades. A reliability upgrade for the gearbox, which is wearing out quite quickly. I don't know if I've checked it yet, but I think after the first race it was already on like 20% wear or something like that. So I was like, goodness me, this is it's going to struggle to make it to the end of the season with 4 gearboxes on hand. We'll probably be changing one every sort of 3 or 4 races, I imagine. But that's absolutely fine. You know, at the end of the day, we're still a team in our infancy. It's okay to take a few penalties now, so we can avoid taking them later. And you can look there at the wheel again. It's chassis really that's sort of our biggest pitfall, I find, at the moment. And yeah, I hope that we can develop that quickly. I think we've got some chassis upgrades on the horizon, but none were able to get on in time for this race. So now we move into the qualifying session. I'm hoping to make at least Q3 here. That's my sort of goal, because I think the car has the capability for it. I think most, you know, I'd be surprised if Enzo does particularly well here, because I don't know, like I said, the AI typically just don't do particularly well around this, and he's sort of benchmarked against the AI, whereas I'm benchmarked against myself, and I show that by going faster than George Russell in the first flying lap that I do. And I kind of looked at that pace and I decided that was probably good enough, and we ended up being P10 at the end, and I think Russell did improve over us. But yeah, generally speaking, that was a time that was fast enough. I didn't have to do a second run. I was very confident I probably wouldn't have to do a second run, so I actually went out on a set of softs first time, rather than doing my typical go out on mediums, sort of feel out the track, and then try and beat that banker lap on a set of softs. This time around, I'm using my old set of softs first time. I don't feel so confident doing a Hail Mary, and I mean, I don't know if it was worth it or not in the end. We went only 0.3 slower, so I definitely see there being a bit more pace in the car if I can unlock it. Maybe we could get into the low 129s, maybe even to the 128s. We'll have to wait and see. And now here we are coming up to the line at the end of our second flying lap in Q2, and you see I made a lot of progress, and it ended up being a 128.6, which was good enough for first position. Obviously, there's still another another qualifying session to go, so You have to wait and see how people do, but I was 5 tenths faster, well 4 tenths faster than anyone in that session. And I mean, that's certainly a optimistic sign, isn't it? Yeah, I was just checking to see if Enzo Fittipaldi had even made it into that session, and I guess he didn't, so he'll be starting a bit further back. But that's fine. Like I said, we still technically have the worst car on the grid at the moment. My biggest goal of this second season is to just try and drag our car off the back of the grid, at least up the performance index a bit, perhaps to sort of 9th or 8th. That would be the sort of ideal scenario, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. And yeah, now we're into Q3. This is my first flying lap again. We're using our set of used tyres. You see Max Verstappen sets a 1:28.2. And I was looking at that like, yeah, that's probably not getting beaten. So I think we can kiss goodbye to any dreams we had of our first pole position in Formula 1. But at least we did pretty well. And now I'll show you the full final lap that I did, just so you can see how it goes. I'll give you a quick spoiler. I don't get pole, but it was still a pretty good lap. I think actually the second flying lap I did in Q2 ended up being a little bit better, but I mean, this is the big money one. There was Magnussen and Vettel in this session, so I was pretty confident I was going to get sort of at least P8. It did make me wonder who got knocked out. I think it was Ricciardo actually didn't make it through to Q3, which will be disappointing in the third best car on the grid. But who knows? Maybe it's time for him to retire. Maybe he's a retirement we'll see later in the season. It's going to have to remain to be seen what happens with that. Yeah, I actually went out a little bit early, as you can see. There's still 3 minutes left in the session, so I'm going to be crossing the line before the flag is down by quite a significant margin, and that might be a bit of a hindrance to me, but we'll have to wait and see. We are making improvements on this lap. We're 6 tenths up as we come to the end of the second sector. We actually went purple to the first sector, which is pretty good, but that's probably the sector that I'm fastest in, because that's sort of the most... I don't know the technical term, but it's got the most corners in it, and therefore it's sort of the area where human input can affect it the most. See, we make more gains as we come through that final corner with a bit better traction in the fresh tyres, and we're about 9 tenths faster as we come to the line. It's good enough for a 1:28.7. It only puts us P5 now, and the other guys are still going to cross the line. But yeah, none of them managed to improve enough to overtake me. So we end up qualifying P5, which I think is our tied best result in qualifying, tied only with Jeddah last year when we qualified 5th. I think we qualified 5th in Jeddah last year. I might be wrong about that, but I seem to remember us qualifying very well. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was where we had our best qualifying result. But ideally, I'd like to maybe make up a place or two if I could maybe snatch one, because my best race result is 5th, and we've had that 3 times now. So I'd like to go at least 1 or 2 better. Perhaps we could even sneak onto the podium. Who knows? But we'll have to wait and see what happens with that when it comes down to the race. All I can say really is that I'm just optimistic. You know, I think we've got a really good chance of points here, as long as we don't have another DNF like we did last year. I think there's a very good points scoring potential in the car and in my pace that I've been having around this circuit for pretty much the whole season. Not the whole season, but the whole race weekend so far, I should say. Mark is saying, you know, finish miles ahead of Enzo. I think there's a pretty good chance of us doing that on account of the fact that he qualified like 21st or something like that. I mean, I guess we'll see. Yeah, I was just checking the engine components there, and they're all well and good. Not going to change any of those. And now it's time to get into the race.
So here we are then, welcoming you today to one of the jewels of the Arab world, Jeddah. One of the biggest cities in Saudi Arabia, second only to Riyadh, gateway to Mecca, and one of the biggest ports in the region. And now, host to the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. So let's take a look at the topographical map of the Jeddah street circuit. As you can see, a number of challenging corners for the drivers to master here. We'll see just how much the teams have benefited from their time spent in practice this weekend. And like many street circuits, this track has the potential to punish drivers that get it wrong. Let's hope we avoid any safety cars today. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position. Sergio Perez lines up alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Russell, Robinson and Hamilton, Sainz, Norris, Magnussen and Sebastian Vettel, Ricciardo, Fernando Alonso, Guan Yu Zhou and Ocon, Mick Schumacher, Albon, Yuki Tsunoda and Lance Stroll, Schwartzman, Latifi, Fittipaldi and Pierre Gasly picks up the final grid slot. With preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track. And alongside me once again for coverage of today's race is none other than the great Anthony Davidson. Why don't we talk about Ferrari? We have some changes to the regulations, of course, which mainly revolve around the chassis this year, and unfortunately the early signs are that they've not adapted particularly well.
There are a few downcast looks within the team this weekend. I think they've been hit fairly hard by the new regs, but this is only the first step down a long road of development, and even if they don't maximise their points today, there are plenty more up for grabs this season.
Not really sure what they're talking about. Ferrari have gone from maybe being the first best team in Formula 1 to the second best team in Formula 1. I think they're still pretty close with Red Bull. They came second and third last Grand Prix, and they've qualified third and seventh, which, to be fair, seventh isn't great, but you know, you can't script me getting a P5. But anyway, I can only focus on my race. I can't care about what Ferrari are doing. The only time I'd ever care about what Ferrari are doing is if we were in a position to steal one of their drivers, which we're absolutely not. There is no way that one of them would ever want to come to our team at the moment. So all we can do is just focus on our own race and try and beat one or two of the Ferraris maybe. Let's see how it goes. So here we are forming up on the grid. It's going to take a little bit of time because we're so far up. Makes a change for once. And now here we are. The lights are coming on. And the lights go out quickly this time. I do get a good reaction though. And even though I'm on the same compound of tyres, I do react probably about the same as Hamilton. Managed to swoop around the outside of him, and I also swoop around the outside of Leclerc as well, and that moves me up into P3 for now, but I'm going to have a real task on my hands if I'm going to keep these guys behind me for the race. You know, Leclerc, Russell, Hamilton, Sainz, all of them are going to be a lot faster than me, and probably Norris in the McLaren too. They're a contender this season, along with the others. I could definitely see Norris getting on the podium, maybe even getting a race win at some point in the season. So yeah, we need to treat them as though they're championship contenders. So the more I can keep them behind, the more that's going to fuel my ego in this race. Verstappen has a bit of a wobble there, but I think he is going to start to pull away. Perez actually has got away very nicely. So yeah, we'll have to see how he goes. Hopefully he won't bin it from the lead this time out like he did in Bahrain. But yeah, just generally speaking, it's been pretty good. We've now got Leclerc attacking us as we come through the sort of middle straight of the circuit, or at least the middle DRS zone. It's not really a straight; it's still a bit twisty. He does get ahead of us, and with no DRS, we're probably not going to be able to fight him back. So we're just going to have to burn as much battery as we can to try and keep the other cars behind. You know, like I said, I want to finish ahead of 5th if I can, and if that means I have to do a bit of how shall I call it, Alonso-esque defending, let's say, I'm more than willing to do that to consolidate my position in this race. I'm burning the battery. You see Russell's attacking me, Norris is attacking me. At one point, you know, if I'd have moved anywhere, I would have probably been involved in an accident. I have to go quite wide. I leave the door pretty open for Russell there, just to make sure that we don't have a collision, because I know what the AI is like in this game. And that would have allowed Leclerc and the likes to pull away from me a bit more, but Perez and Verstappen, and I think maybe Leclerc as well even, were kind of having a bit of a squabble in front of me, and that enabled me to sort of stay in the hunt. So anyway, we move on to lap 3, and we are sort of coming towards I think this is towards the end of lap 3 now, as we cut around the final corner, and obviously DRS is enabled now, so George Russell is going to be right on my case here, burning all the battery. But you see, he's just with the DRS, he's got the superior speed. We go down the inside. It looked like he was going to try and close the door, but we managed to find just a little gap to sneak through for now, so we retain that P4. And yeah, that's the kind of thing we're going to have to be doing pretty much lap after lap after lap if we want to keep him behind. Here we are now towards the end of lap 4 as we come to the final DRS zone. And you see that Russell has the DRS on me and he's overtaking me. But if you've ever watched a race around Jeddah, you'll know that that means that in this ensuing DRS zone, which comes immediately after, it's going to be me who has the DRS, and I also have saved up enough battery to contend with him, because I wasn't burning battery in the previous straight, knowing that this would be an option available to me. We saw this in Jeddah in 2021 with Hamilton and Verstappen. We saw it with Leclerc and Verstappen in 2022, and now me and Russell are probably going to end up doing the same thing in this race. We just about stay ahead as we come in now to lap 5, and now here we are at the end of lap 5. He's going to have the DRS on me in the very same straight once again, and I am going to have the DRS coming into the final of the 3 DRS zones as they line up, I guess. I always consider this one the first one because it's technically the first one that you're in at the start of a lap, but I guess really if you consider them a sequence, this is the final one because they all kind of come up very shortly after one another. This time we picked the outside, and we managed to squeeze him out as we come around the second corner, and that's enough to keep him behind for now. We got Sainz, who's starting to close us down. I think he was squabbling with Norris earlier in the race, but yeah, it's going to become difficult to keep these guys behind once there's multiple guys behind at the same time, because it's difficult to defend from 2 people who have DRS. Defending from 1 person who has DRS isn't easy, but it's not impossible. Defending from 2 people with DRS is very, very hard. So you see, as we come into lap 7, we do the exact same thing again. This was kind of the story of this race, to be honest with you. Like, we're just kind of doing the same thing over and over again with George Russell, at least, you know, for the first sort of stint or so. Just kind of swapping places back and forth with him. He was getting ahead of me through the back straight, and then on the pit straight I was getting ahead of him again, just checking to make sure that there was no damage on my car, because I was conscious of running over curbs. I'm sure you will remember Monaco last season, which didn't perhaps go as nicely as I ideally would have wanted it to have gone. But yeah, you know, like pretty much the only place that he can get ahead of me before this lap at least was the sort of the back straight, but then this sort of middle straight, he's a little bit closer to me on this occasion. With the DRS, obviously I can't completely close him off because that's dirty driving, and we know how Russell can complain about these kinds of things. So yeah, I tried to sort of keep my foot in here, and then I tried to do it again, but you see I'm still not burning my battery even though I have the DRS. I even disabled the DRS knowing that Sainz wouldn't be able to find a way through because me and Norris were side by side, and then sweep round the outside of him as we come through the final corner, and now I've got the DRS and I've got the battery to burn. And I was thinking honestly Sainz might even overtake Russell here because Russell wouldn't have had DRS, but I think he just about manages to hold on to 5th place for now. But I can't imagine how frustrating it must be to be the driver stuck behind in a train like this. Checking up on the progress of Enzo Fittipaldi, unfortunately it's not really good news. He seems to have some kind of mechanical failure. Because the replay camera is showing an onboard, I'm not sure whether this was engine or gearbox related. I hope it's not engine related, or gearbox related for that matter, because I would like to finish this race. But yeah, that means unfortunately there's only 1 Jaguar left in the race now, and it's me. So all our hopes rest on me, whereas before all our hopes rested on me. And yeah, again, Russell gets ahead of me in the same DRS zone he's been doing every single time, and all I can do is try and sort of fight him back. Go around the outside as we usually do, leave him plenty of space at the corner, and yeah, manage to retain P4. This is pretty much this just one party trick that I'm pulling out lap after lap after lap. Give away the DRS, take back the DRS, get ahead of him again. Here we are, lap 9. I imagine we're going to do a pretty similar thing. Here he comes. Sainz is looking in, Norris is looking in. You see, I'm causing a bit of a queue, but I mean, you know, this is racing, right? This is what it is. If you can't find a way through, you don't find a way through. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not doing anything dirty. I'm just getting overtaken and then re-overtaking him every single time. And you see, as we come through to turn 1 once again, we're already ahead of him at this time as we get to the corner. We don't even have to go around the outside of him or any shenanigans like that. Lap 10, it's going to be a similar thing. Perez and Verstappen are swapping places up front for P1. Russell actually makes a little bit of contact with me there, so I was just checking to make sure my front wing hadn't broken off, but we are okay. I think I almost gave him a bit of a shunt of the backside there, but we're absolutely fine. And yeah, once again, DRS. Battery, which we've had enough upgrades on to be able to burn it at least in one place consistently over every lap, and this is the place I've been choosing. Sweep round the outside as always, leave him a bit of room so he can get through on the inside if he wants to. And yeah, still we retain P4, and this has pretty much been the story. If we pit earlier than them, the only problem that I'm going to think of is that they're going to have more pace when they're not behind me, and perhaps they could pull away from me, at least to a certain degree. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. But yeah, I wasn't optimistic about my chances. I was thinking honestly I could, after everyone's pitted, I could potentially be sort of P7 behind Sainz and Norris as well, because these guys all have just superior pace over me. So now we're coming out of the pits, and it's going to be pretty tight with Tsunoda. I don't know which one of us is going to be ahead. I actually go a bit wide there by accident because I got down on the power a bit early, but we did manage to stay ahead of Tsunoda. Now Russell, Sainz and Norris have all pitted, and you see it's very close. I did come out ahead of Norris. I was pretty much side by side with Sainz, and Russell is just ahead, unfortunately. But we go around the outside in a pretty unconventional position and manage to retain the position over Sainz for now. And then here we are at the end of lap 14. We've managed to stay in range of George Russell. And once again, we're going to use the DRS. We're going to do the same thing we've been doing every single time. We go to the inside, and then we switch to the outside and swoop around the outside, squeeze him out at the second corner, and we're back up into P4. So once again, we've managed to retain the exact same position that we've been in all race. And I mean, that it's just a testament to the fact that I think this trick kind of this track kind of needs to maybe be changed with regards to the DRS zones, because this is just a constant back and forth. You saw Russell actually locked up there, giving away the position to Sainz. I'm not sure which of them has the DRS. I think it should be Sainz, given that I had DRS here as well. But yeah, that means that for now they've actually swapped places, and yeah, I have managed to hold on to my P4. I didn't even have to overtake him this time around. I just did what I could, and now as we come towards the end of lap 16 again, it's going to be Sainz pressuring us instead of Russell. I guess I must be slower through that corner complex than they are, because I always find that Russell and Sainz always close me down, and this time both of them managed to shape up the move with the DRS here because of how close they were. I try and go to the inside. I think I actually make a little bit of contact with not only them, but with the wall as well. It's a miracle I didn't get any damage. And Russell's the one without the DRS. I guess he must have been ahead of the DRS zone. Sainz has it. But somehow, with the battery and the DRS and the slipstream, I managed to just be slightly faster than him and sneak my way up the inside for a double overtake. So it was a nice move indeed. I was pretty happy with that one, because it meant I was able to retain a P4, which I really had no business holding on to. Here we are now, lap 17. This is Mick Schumacher we're looking at. I think you know what's about to happen, judging by the fact that I've panned to a random car. There's the puff of smoke, and that Ferrari engine in the back of that Haas has gone kaput. So that's the end of his race, lap 17. First time Mick Schumacher's managed to make it around Jeddah and retire from the race for some reason that wasn't his fault. So yeah, proud of you, Mick. Sainz overtakes us again through the back straight, and now we're probably going to try and get him back once again as we come down to the first corner on lap 18. All I was thinking to myself at this point was like, this is just going to be the story of the rest of the race, and then I'm probably thinking about it, I was thinking, I'm actually probably not going to get P4 if I do that, because I always overtake them at the first corner, and the line comes up earlier than that, and when we cross the line, I'm usually behind whichever car it is. So yeah, I was thinking I could potentially get P5, even P6 here. So I was thinking about what I was going to do on that final lap to keep them behind, and I realised I'd probably just have to burn battery on the back straight as well. and try and fight them into the final corner, but also see if I can get the DRS, so we don't have an Ocon Bottas moment like we did in 2021. Now here is Carlos Sainz doing the same thing, but he locks up much like George Russell did a few laps ago, and this allows me once again to have the DRS and the battery and no one to overtake, so I can start pulling away from who is now Russell, because he's overtaken Sainz much in the way that Sainz overtook him when Russell did the same thing. So Russell has once again regained his position, and Norris has actually got ahead of Sainz as well. Here I am being attacked by George Russell on lap 19, and you can see he is once again going to do the same thing, and he actually turns in a bit early there and makes a bit of contact with me. I think he's okay, and I'm okay. We've managed to escape a few scrapes at this point unscathed. But yeah, getting the elbows out a bit. I don't really blame him. Like I said, I'm sure he's getting immensely frustrated. He's been stuck behind me for, well, 20 laps basically. So I can see where the frustration would lie. He goes for the move once again as we get onto lap 20 now, towards the end of lap 20, approaching lap 21. Defends to the inside. That's going to make him slow through the corner, and this allows me to catch up to the back of him. He has the superior traction out of the corner, that concertina effect that you see in sort of modern Formula 1 racing. But once again with the DRS, I'm just superior to him. This time I do leave him enough room, but I guess he outbrakes himself, because you can hear he clattered into the side of me quite hard there. And as you will see as we progress through the rest of this lap, he is going to fall away from me quite dramatically. I think he must have done damage to his car. You can see he's now 3 seconds behind us, and he's held up Norris and Sainz as well, which means that yeah, now I am comfortably ahead of these guys. And I was thinking that wasn't really the way I would have wanted a race like this to sort of conclude, but I can't see a world in which Sainz and Norris are going to catch up. If they do, it's going to be on sort of the final lap. But as they go through the first corner complexes, they start squabbling with each other, and now the gap is almost 5 seconds. So now, yeah, there was pretty much no way they were going to catch me in 3.5 laps when they have to make up 5 seconds basically to me. So yeah, that was pretty much the story of that race. Now as we get onto the final lap, you see that Sainz is still 3 seconds behind me. I know that my car is typically a bit slower than a Ferrari, but I don't think it's going to be 3.5 seconds slower. I will show you the final lap just in case something dramatic does end up happening, but yeah, I would certainly at this point in the race have been very surprised to see a late attack from Carlos Sainz, at least on the same tyres as me. I know he put them on slightly later than I did. I think it was 2 or 3 laps later than I did, but yeah, either way, it doesn't really matter too much. And yeah, now it's all about just bringing it home, trying not to make any mistakes. If I get a penalty, when I did definitely have at least one corner cut warning earlier. I can't remember how many I ended up having, but there was at least one. So if I were to get a 3-second penalty, that could actually negatively affect my race. So that was something that I was quite keen on avoiding. And yeah, just driving a nice clean lap around one of my favourite circuits. I was pretty confident that fastest lap was off the table, because the 3 guys ahead have been faster than me all race. Probably the 3 people who were behind me for the majority of the race have been faster than me all race as well, but just unable to overtake. I don't know where Hamilton went. I think he must have had some kind of contact or something, because he wasn't anywhere to be seen at any point during this race. I don't know if he had a score with someone else. Perez crosses the line to win. Leclerc gets the fastest lap at the death, so he takes a point away from his championship rivals, the Red Bulls, who so far have won both races this season. It was Verstappen in Bahrain, and now it's Perez in Jeddah. But we crossed the line to finish P4, and that is our best result of our entire career so far. Best result of the season as well, because we had a 5th last time out. But yeah, career best result of P4, and I can't really be too disappointed with that. You know, this is a car that struggles to get into the points.
Another fantastic victory for Red Bull today. Talk to me, Ants. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
Ant is just speechless, apparently. He's got nothing to say about that one. He just doesn't even know what's happened there. He's thinking too much about mine and Russell's battle, I guess. I obviously don't know what happened up front, but, you know, maybe one day I'll be able to to dream of standing where these people stand. I thought it might have been that race. When I got ahead of Leclerc, I was thinking maybe, but yeah, he was just too fast in those first few laps. If I'd have got the DRS, I would have been able to do to him what I did to the others. But once he got away, I would have had to have relied on a DNF up front, which I was pretty sure wasn't going to happen. So, yeah, in the end, it ended up being P4. Still, like I said, career best result. Team's best result in Formula 1. And, yeah, just an all-around really, really solid result.
So let's review the updated driver standings. Max Verstappen should be pleased with his performance, making gains at the top of the table. Well, after an incredible day of racing, who was your driver of the day, Ant?
I think it has to be Fernando Alonso. He got the strategy spot on and consistently had the pace to come through as well.
Let's move on to the constructors. And pulling further ahead in the standings, it's Red Bull. Meanwhile, good work from Aston Martin this weekend, who pushed themselves further up the order. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
So yeah, I think Mercedes ended up scoring 0 points there. These 22 points that we have now mean we only have to score 3 more for the entire remainder of the season. And I know Australia is typically a pretty solid track for me. I don't know how some of the other ones are going to go. Some of the ones I've never done before, like China and Portugal. We'll have to see how those ones go. But, I mean, I'm pretty optimistic about this sponsor bonus now. I'm thinking maybe I should have set it higher, but who could have predicted that we'd have had this strong a start to the season? This is very reminiscent of Haas this year, in 2022, to be fair, in real life. You know, just a team that went from being a backmarker, barely ever scoring points, and then all of a sudden, in these last 5 races that we've done, something's really clicked, and we've looked like solid points contenders in all of them. Even in a race where I started in dead last, we were looking like a points contender by about lap 5 or 6. That's not something you can say about every team. So either I'm stepping things up to a significant margin, or I don't know what's going on. But yeah, that was actually a highlight I didn't show you. But yeah, things got pretty close there with Russell and Sainz at one point. The classic pit lane overtakes of yore. This was a pretty action-packed race, all in all. Pretty much every lap until the last few, when they kind of fell off a little bit due to Russell's damage. Pretty much every lap had something going on in it, which is not something you can say about every race. So I was pretty having fun during this one, especially because I was able to stay ahead. A lot of the time, I don't know, I'm not really a fan of races like this usually, where I have to just defend all race. I much prefer races where I get to go on the attack, where I get to overtake and feel like I'm closing down the cars ahead. I remember I had a really fun one year, I think it was F1 2019 maybe, where I was doing a Bahrain race and we had like 30 laps to go. And I was, you know, comfortably ahead of the car behind me, and I think I had Bottas ahead of me. And I was closing him down and closing him down and closing him down lap after lap after lap. And then like 4 laps before the end, I finally overtook him. Those are my favourite kinds of races, where it just feels like you're pushing hard lap after lap to catch the car ahead of you. But in a backmarker car, those kinds of races don't really exist at the moment. But yeah, once we're a bit more of a contender, I'm hoping we can have a few more races like that. So that's where the contact happened with George Russell. Who do you think was at fault in that one? Was it me? Was it Russell? It was probably Russell, knowing the way the AI in this game works. But you know, maybe you have a different opinion on that, and yeah, let me know if that is the case. We actually tie with Alonso because he got the faster lap than I did, unsurprisingly, because he's in a faster car, and we had to defend for the whole race as well. But yeah, pretty solid all in all. I think obviously Enzo Fittipaldi ended up having that DNF. So hopefully he can bounce back a bit stronger in Australia. But all in all, yeah, I think the team's in high spirits. You know, we're staring down the barrel of getting our 6 or 7 million bonus after 3 races in a 22 race season. So yeah, we can pretty much just crack open the champagne already, and I'll see you guys in season 3. No, obviously I'm joking, but thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.